In this lesson 4.3, we'll be exploring rational forms and radical forms in depth, and we're going to be simplifying radicals. Every time you say rational exponent, you mean an exponent that is a fraction. So rational means fractional exponents. Just like 4.2, but we're going to have more practice on that. Now let's look at the first question. Rewrite each expression using rational or basically fractional exponents. So again, just like what we did before, if there's no power on the outside, you assume that it's a 2, and 8 means 8 to the power 1. So to change this to a rational exponent, you would do 8 to the power half. Now the next one is going to be cubic root of 5/8 would be 5 to the power 8 over 3. And this one, number 3, when you rewrite it, is going to be this 4th root of 3x to the power 3. So it would be 3x to the power 3/4. Just like 4.2. Now let's move on to 4, 5, and 6. You have to write this in a radical notation. So remember in and out. So it would be the fifth root of 4 to the power 1. You can rewrite this as a 5th root of just 4. Now remember that this is called an index. So 1 over 5, you would put this power inside and this power on the outside. Now the next one is going to be the 3rd root of 16 to the power 5. This one would be the 4th root of 5xy squared, all of this cubed. So again, this power would be on the inside and this would be the index of the radical. Now this is 1 through 3 is to change to rational exponents, and 4 through 6 is to change into radical notation. Now 7 through 10, you are not allowed to use a calculator. So in order to simplify or evaluate those expressions, there are 2 ways. I'm going to show you the first method. Okay, so the first one would be to change from a rational exponent to a radical. So it would be the square root of 4 to the power 3. Remember that the index is going to be 2. Now remember, in order to know how many of this goes outside of the radical, so it would be, you can divide it into 4 to the power 2 and 4 to the power 1, since 2 plus 1 is a 3. So then, since this is 2 and this is 2, so this 4 goes out of the radical. So it's going to be 4 square root of 4. And square root of 4 is a 2, so 4 times 2 is an 8. So as you can see, it's a lot of work to change from a rational exponent to a radical form. So I'm going to show you the other method, and that is to think of 4 alone. Now 4 is what? 4 is 2 times 2. So you can write 4 as 2 squared, and then keep the power 3 over 2. So what you just did is that you thought 4 is what? 4 is 2 times 2, so 2 squared. And you just copied this power on the outside. Now, remember, if you have a power to a power, even though it's a fraction, you are still multiplying them. So it would be 2 to the power 2 times 3 over 2. Now, my regulars, remember, you can use a calculator to do that. Now, my pre-AP, remember, to multiply 2 times 3 over 2, you can cross-cancel 2 and 2. You will be left with just 3. So it would be 2 to the power of 3, which is 2 times 2 times 2, which is an 8. So remember, you can cross-cancel those, and you will just be left with a 3. 2 to the power 3 is an 8. And as you can see, you got the same answer, but this is much faster. Now let's do number 9, since it's in front of us. So 8 is going to be 2 times 2 times 2, so 2 to the power 3. And you copy down the power 2 over 3. Now remember, if you have a power to a power, same concept, you multiply them. So it's going to be 3 times 2/3. 3 and 3 cross cancel, you will be just left with 2. So it's going to be 2 to the power this, what's left, which is 2 to the power 2. And then 2 to the power 2 is 2 times 2, which is a 4. Now this would be a good time to pause the video and go ahead and do 8 and 10 on your own. Remember, just forget about the negative sign. Solve it like we did 7 and 9, and then think of the negative afterwards. Now, I hope you tried 8 and 10 on your own. So to do this, think of 9. 9 is 3 to the power 2, and you copy the negative half on the outside. Remember, a power to a power, it means you have to multiply those two. So 3 to the power 2 times negative half. Again, the 2 and the 2 will cross cancel, and you will be left with the negative 1. So the answer would be 3 to the power negative 1. Now remember the rule that says every time you have a negative exponent, it means you have to reverse or flip your fraction. So it would be 1 over, so over 1, so 1 over 3 to the power 1, which is 1/3. Now let's move on to number 10. 32 is 2 to the power 5, since 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, so this is 4 and this is 4. 4 times 4 is a 16, and 16 times 2 is a 32. So 2 to the power 5 is a 32, and then to the power negative 3 over 5. Since you have a power to a power, you multiply them. It would be 2 to the power 5 times negative 3 over 5. The 5 and the 5 will cancel out. You will be left with negative 3, so it would be 2 to the power negative 3. You have to flip this to get rid of the negative exponent, so it would be 1 over 2/3, which is 1 over 8. Now let's move on to the second part of this sheet. Now remember that all the laws of exponents still apply to rational exponents. So remember, when you are multiplying, you add the powers. So it would be a plus b. So what you can do is you can, as you can see, both of them have cubic roots. So extend the cubic root and write under it x to the power 5 and x to the power 4. So it would be x to the power 5 times x to the power 4. Again, since you are multiplying, so what you should do, since you are multiplying, you have to add those exponents. So it would be cubic root of 5 plus 4. So it's going to be the cubic root of x to the power 9. That would be the final answer. If you need to you can simplify that, but for now I just want to review the laws of exponents. Now there's a typing error, so there should be a 4 over here. So as you can see, both of them are 4th root, so you can extend the 4th root and just copy a cube, or a to the power 3 over a to the power 5, so a to the power 3 over a to the power 5 again. Since you are dividing, so you need to subtract the power, like here it would be a minus b, so it would be 3 minus 5, so it would be the 4th root of a to the power 3 minus 5. It would be the 4th root of a to the power negative 2. Now since you have a negative exponent, remember negative exponent means you have to flip it, so it would be 1 over 4th root of a to the power 2. That would be the final answer. Now let's move on. If it's a power to a power, you need to multiply those powers. So since this is to the power 1, so it would be square root of x to the power 1 times 4. So square root of x to the power 4. Now again, if you have a negative exponent, you need to flip your fraction. So since this is negative, you need to move this down. This is positive, so you keep it where it is. So it would be 1 over x to the power 1/3, which is this one that you move down, and x to the power 1/3. Now, you can still simplify those two. Remember, they are being multiplied, so you add those two powers. Now, 1/3 plus 1/3 is going to be, remember, you add the numerator, so 1 plus 2 is 2, and you copy the denominator. Again, my regular, you can do that on the calculator, so it would be x to the power 2/3, since you added those 1/3 and you got a 2/3. So 1 over x to the power 2/3. Now let's switch. On the back page, as you can see, you are going to be simplifying or using the law of exponents, you need to simplify. So 5 to the, since there's a multiplication, you add the powers. So let's add the powers. 3 over 4 plus 1 over 4. Now remember, you add the numerators. So 3 plus 1 is 4. Over 4 is a 1. So you always add the numerators and you just move the denominator over. You copy it. And 4 over 4 is a 1. Again, my regular, you can just copy or do this on the calculator. So it would be 5 to the power 1, whatever you got over here. 5 over 1, or 5 to the power 1 is 5. So let's move on to number 12. Since it's a power to a power, you need to multiply them. So it would be a to the power half times 6. So half times 6. And then b to the power 2/3 times 6. So also you multiply the 6 by the 2/3. Now, for this one, if you're allowed a calculator, use it. If not, 1 over 2, now I'm going to do this on the side, 1 over 2 times 6. You can cross cancel by 2. So this would become 1 and this would become 3. So the final answer would be 1 times 3, which is a 3. So a to the power 3. Now again, you can cross cancel those 2 by 3. So this would be 1 and this would be 2. So as you can see, you'll be left with 2 times 2, which is a 4. So it's going to be b to the power 4. So the final answer is a to the power 3, b to the power 4. Now this would be a good time to pause the video and try 13 and 14 on your own. I hope you tried this on your own. Now remember, the 1/3, you should multiply it by the power of each and every number or variable on the inside. So it would be 27 to the power 1/3. Since it has no power, it means it has a power of 1. So 1 times 1/3 would be just 1/3. And then it's going to be c to the power 6 times 1/3 and d to the power -3 times 1/3. So as you can see, you multiply the power by each one of those powers. Now, 27, you can rewrite it as 3 times 3 times 3, so 3 to the power 3. And then 1/3. C, you can cross cancel those two. Remember, if you're allowed to use a calculator, you can just type on the calculator 6 times parentheses 1 over 3. If it gave you a decimal answer, you can just use math and change it to a fraction again. If you're not allowed a calculator, you can simplify it. So you can simplify by 3. You will get a 1 over here, and you will get a 2. So 2 times 1 is a 2. D, those cross cancel, so you'll be left with -1. So d to the power -1. Now remember, you are multiplying those two. So 3 times 1/3, you cross cancel, you will be left with just 1. So it would be 3 to the power 1. C to the power 2, and this has to go down, so it would be d to the power 1 to get rid of the negative number or negative exponent. So 3 to the power 1 is just 3c squared over d. Now I know it can get complicated, but if you take it one step at a time, it will be much easier. Now let's do 14. 8 is 2 to the power 3. And I'm going to copy everything else. And 27 is going to be 3 to the power 3 and b to the power 9. And then all of it is to the power 2/3. So what I did is I just wrote those as a number to a power. So I can, whenever I multiply, I can cross cancel if I need to. So again, the power has to go and multiply by each power that's inside the parentheses. So it would be 2 to the power 3 times 2/3. A to the power 12 times 2/3 over 3 to the power 3 times 2/3 and b to the power 9 times 2/3. So one step at a time. Now those cross cancel, so you will be just left with the 2, so 2 to the power 2. You can cross cancel by 3, so you get a 4. 4 times 2 is an 8, so it's going to be a to the power 8. 3 and 3 cross cancel, so it will be 3 to the power 2. You can cross cancel by 3, so this will be just 3, since 9 divided by 3 is a 3, and 3 times 2 is a 6, so b to the power 6. And that would be your final answer. Now you can rewrite 2 squared as a 4, so 4a to the power 8 over 9b to the power 6, and that would be your final answer. Now I'm going to leave 15 and 16 and 17 for you to do on your own. I just want to remind you that every time you multiply, you have to add the powers. So this x's you can combine by adding the powers, and those y's you can combine by adding the powers. However, 5 times 2 is a 10x, and you need to add those powers to know what this would be, y, and then you need to add those two powers to get what the y would be. Now this is just a hint. And since it's all x, so you need to add all of those powers together to get the final power. Now remember, every time you are dividing for number 17, so it would be, you have to simplify those by dividing them. You simplify by 3. And since you are dividing, you need to subtract the power, so it would be a to the power, whatever 2 over 7 minus 8 over 7 would be. So try 15 through 17 on your own, and we'll do it together in class.